This video has been funded in part by the Guild via Patreon. Check out the links in the description or at the end of this video for more details. Hello everyone, my name is Chris Gildart, and welcome to the last Musou May Pros vs. Cons review. The time has come to put a close to our retrospective of the Dynasty Warriors Gundam series. This year's Musou May has been incredible, and I just want to thank you all for such a great time. Revisiting the Gundam series has been a trip and a half. I am overjoyed to have gone through all 4 games again and to have finally experienced the Japanese versions and exclusives. It can be difficult for me to find time to just go back and play these games when I'm usually so busy working on videos. But it must all come to an end now with this final Musou May video. Together we will put a close to this year's event as I take a look at the final game in the series, Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn. This entry was released in Japan on December 19th, 2013 as Shin Gundam Musou, while North America got it on July 1st, 2014, and Europe on June 27th, titled Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn. There are quite a few notable changes that this entry brings to the table that I'll be talking about in this video. If I sound a bit more on the serious side right now, it's partly because this is a bittersweet experience. I still have to go back to Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 and 3 to unlock more trophies and achievements, and that fact is also true for Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn. I know I've been streaming these 3 games throughout the month, but it still doesn't stop me from getting a little emotional as if this is the end. That feeling also extends to the fact that this would be the last Dynasty Warriors Gundam game that we have received to date. I've also noticed a lot of people just don't know about Reborn. When I see most conversations going on about which entry is their favorite, it's usually either 2 or 3. I've mentioned this entry before and had people say, I didn't know there was a 4th Gundam game. Who knows, maybe this entry wasn't all that great and that's why we haven't seen a new entry in a while. I don't even know what they call the next entry in this series. Dynasty Warriors Gundam 5? Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn 2? Or would they just go back to basics and call it Gundam Warriors? Either way, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for more. Alright, it's time to find out if the Dynasty Warriors Gundam series ends on a good note with the first Pro. For the other 3 games in the series, I complained about the stories provided. In the first game, it was that parts of the original anime were completely omitted from the original story mode. For the second game, it was the lack of different characters which could have provided more aspects to each battle. For the third game, it was that the anime story was relegated to submissions rather than being given the focus it deserved. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn, we finally get a decent way to experience the story of the various anime series. In this entry, you get to play through a rather comprehensive story mode for Mobile Suit Gundam, Zeta Gundam, Char's Counterattack, Gundam Unicorn, Gundam Seed, and Seed Destiny. Through these stories, you'll play as the main characters of the anime. This does mean that in Mobile Suit Gundam, you'll primarily be playing as Amuro. That being said, there is usually a stage or 2 in the story where you will play as the side characters. You will automatically swap between characters, kind of like Dynasty Warriors 7's story. The only difference is that you won't have a cutscene that flows back into battle. I was surprised as well when I started playing the Seed Destiny story that it started me out playing as Atherin in a Zaku warrior, just a foot soldier unit. This mobile suit does have a 4-hit combo, so it didn't really feel like the game was nerfing me, but it was really cool. There are also a lot more cutscenes than before depicting the various scenes we know and love. Many of these we've already experienced in the past games, but some for Mobile Suit Gundam, Zeta, and Char's Counterattack we haven't seen before. As far as Unicorn, Seed, and Seed Destiny go, we have never seen these cutscenes before. The story mode here doesn't just cover more story during gameplay either. Between the stages, there are these visual novel-style conversations that give you background on the plot and character interactions. One part of the Gundam series that has been missed in earlier entries is the human side of things. They were either lightly dashed in between stages or just weren't implemented properly. Here, it's not the best that it could be, but we at least get to experience the majority of the story for each series. They also include stills from the anime, which is nice to see mixed in with the character portraits. These are skippable even if it's the first time that you view them, so if you don't care about the story, you can just jump right into the action. Then we have Ultimate Mode, which is essentially this game's version of Mission Mode from Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2. Luckily, similar to the way that Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 is structured, these aren't separated by pilot like in the second game. Instead, they are separated by chapters or side stories. I will mention that depending on the chapter, you won't be able to select certain pilots to play, as they might be the main antagonist of that story. Each Ultimate Mode chapter also includes similar visual novel scenes from Story Mode to help build the story around that chapter. These unfortunately don't have any voice acting compared to the Story Mode scenes, but that's fine. The battles are still voice acted, and the story here isn't that incredible. It's really just the missions that keep you coming back. The big difference that Ultimate Mode introduces are objectives. In each stage, there will be 3 objectives to achieve victory with either a bronze, silver, or gold medal. Sometimes it can be killing so many enemies or finishing the stage within a certain amount of time. Other times, it can be completing the stage with a specific mobile suit. Usually, in these cases, the gold medal is awarded after finishing the stage with a specific grunt suit. There's even a trivia stage, and the gold medal is won by getting every question correct. These medals are the big thing that you'll be aiming for in the post-game as they unlock more characters and suits to use. There is also a card collection aspect to the game, where some cards are locked to certain characters or suits, reaching a total kill count or even getting the gold medal on specific stages. There is just so much replayability here, it's insane! Con! Now, some of you might be thinking, wait, Chris, don't you usually mention the graphics as your first pro? And my answer to that would be, yes, disembodied voice, you are absolutely correct. Then why don't you do that here? Well, that's because it's going to be the first con. Now, let me start off by saying that Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn doesn't look bad. I mean, it does look better than the first game. My issue is with how dull everything looks. I feel like the environment and mobile suits need a little bit more saturation to give them that oomph. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, the mobile suits looked so shiny. It was almost like you were taking it out for its first sortie straight from the manufacturer. Then we had Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3, where they pursued a cel-shaded style that matched the look of the anime. Thanks to this, they were able to add particle effects to beam sabers and gunshots that really made everything pop. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn, it's like we get an upgrade in detail at the cost of that added character. Like I said, mobile suits do look like they have more detail than before. This is like the difference between the entry grade and the Beyond Global high grade RX-78-2 with how much detail we see, but it's met with dull colors that don't pop. Metal doesn't shine, and it culminates in an overall look that doesn't seem to stand out among the crowd. It's not quite as bad, but it almost feels like a similar theme of brown filters that we saw in the middle of the 7th generation. It's sad to see this game not stand out with its visuals when the last 2 entries really showed what they were capable of. It also doesn't help that this game only released on PS3. With the first 3 games, we also got a 360 release. I kind of touched on this in my video about preferring to play my Warriors games on Xbox consoles, but with this generation, though the PS3 was fully capable of outputting 1080p, most of the games only went up to 720p and require an upscaler to close the gap if you want them to look the best that they can on modern TVs. With the Xbox 360, more games offer a 1080p option, and if they don't, the console has an internal upscaler to get to that resolution. With the first game, the PS3 did look better, but the second and third were pretty well on par. All the footage that you see here is being captured with a PS3 and the M Classic upscaler. It really makes me wish that we had an Xbox 360 port. I just want to enjoy this game at its best. Pro. Now here's a pro that I feel like I've been mentioning on every entry of the Dynasty Warriors Gundam series. The first game was limited with how many mobile suits you could use. Then the second one came along and said, hold my beer, and not only added more suits, but let us play as grunt units like the Zaku and the Jim. With the third entry, we got even more mobile suits after adding some from Unicorn and 00 along with some grunt suits from the various series. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn having a large focus on story, we get to see another explosion in the roster. The third game had a total of 74 playable mobile suits, with 5 additional for DLC that is no longer available. Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn not only includes those 5 lost DLC characters, but expands the roster up to 123, now including many mobile suits from Unicorn, Gundam Seed, and Gundam Seed Destiny. Since these stories are more explored in this game, it makes sense to add almost everything that you can into this entry's roster. We we see 5 suits added from Unicorn, including the Kshatriya, which was DLC in Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3. There are also 14 suits added from Seed, where we only had the Jin, which was added in Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3. Then we see 13 suits added from Seed Destiny, when all we had previously was the Strike Freedom, Infinite Justice, and Destiny Gundams, which were added in the second entry. Finally, the 4 characters and suits from 00 that were added in the third entry thanks to DLC are also here. On top of all of this, Luna Maria Hawk, a playable character since Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, finally gets to pilot her Gunner Zaku Warrior. It's only a 4-hit combo suit, which is a bit disappointing considering how long she's been playable, but I'm still happy to see her finally able to pilot her own mobile suit. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but this specific Zaku Warrior is special to me because it was my first Gunpla kit. I bought this Chinese ripoff a while back and it nearly got me out of the hobby entirely because it lacked articulation and detail. I would later get the kit that I deserved with the Master Grade Luna Maria Hawk Gunner Zaku Warrior, but it unfortunately fell off of a shelf and broke. Eventually, I will replace it and collect more of this specific suit, but I thought I'd tell this story as to why I've been mentioning her in other reviews other than the fact that she's a playable character and doesn't get her own mobile suit. But these suits aren't the only ones that we get to see either. There are 6 suits available for DLC, which include the GP-03S Stamen from Stardust Memory, the full armor Unicorn from the last couple episodes of the anime, Crossbone Gundam X1 Kai, which has never been seen in an anime yet, the Endless Waltz version of Wing Zero, which is absolutely insane to see, and on top of all of that, a joke suit that was provided as a pre-order bonus in Japan, the Bear Guy. I just think it's hilarious that we still got this gem of a suit in the West. All of the mobile suits and pilots are split up into their own series on a character select wheel that feels very reminiscent of what we see in Warriors Orochi. This really helps someone like me who knows a lot about Gundam but doesn't know it all. When I see a series I haven't watched before, I want to experience what that series' mobile suits have to offer. Even though I love the Luna Maria Hawk Gunner Zaku Warrior, I have never watched an episode of Seed Destiny, so seeing the Zaku Phantoms was also pretty cool. The last thing I'll mention about the roster is something that I've been saying since Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2. Now, I fully understood why they weren't playable, but seeing them in the game as enemies still made me want to know what it would be like to take them into battle. But with Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn, we finally get to experience what it's like to pilot the gigantic mobile armors like the Psycho Gundam. We even get to see the addition of a new mobile armor from Seed Destiny with the Destroy Gundam. It's a lot of fun to jump into a stage and decimate the enemy army with one of these. Suffice to say that with all of the replayability this game offers thanks to story and ultimate mode, you won't be bored thanks to the expansive roster of robots. Now, even though the roster is filled to the brim with playable mobile suits, I can't help but complain about some of the weird decisions and still missing suits. First off, I know we finally get to play as mobile armors, but they aren't quite as much fun as I wanted them to be. It's still a nice experience to tower over top of all the other mobile suits, but the combos given to them just isn't up to snuff. They're kind of in between the 4-hit combo of something like the Zaku Phantoms and a grunt suit like the Jim. You still have a 4-hit combo of normal attacks, but no matter when you hit your charge attack, it's going to be the exact same. There's also no dash attacks, and your Musou is the exact same every time as well. They're still quite destructive, so you shouldn't feel like you're being handicapped necessarily. But it would have been nice to have at least different charge attacks that would match the ones that they would pull on you as an enemy. There are also a few mobile armors that remain unplayable. First off, Dark Gundam is not playable, which might be due to it being a stationary mobile armor that attacks with the Gundam heads. But you could have designed its mobile fighter mode for the player to use. Its Musou could have transformed it into the mobile armor mode that we see as an enemy, and it could have spewed gas on the enemies around it. Then there are 2 mobile armors that are missing from the Unicorn series that do hinder the execution of its story. The first one that appears in the anime is this Shamblo piloted by Lonnie Garvey. I think it would have been great to include this even if, like the Dark Gundam, it wasn't playable. But there's one mobile armor that I feel should have been included and playable, that one being the Neo Xiang. This is the big finale moment for Unicorn, so why it's not here is completely beyond me. You wouldn't really have to go too far to create it either. The design could have been based off the Alpha Azero, which is already playable. Every series story mode also includes a special stage to play as the big mobile armor from that anime. The only ones missing these stages is Unicorn and Seed. I do understand the latter because there isn't really a big mobile armor that stands out, but Unicorn had 2 mobile armors that could have been included, with the Neo Xiang being my choice for the special stage. I also mentioned this in the last video, but with Wing being the series that I grew up with, I am very disappointed that we're missing just enough suits to lose out on a Wing-focused story. All we would have needed is the Sandrock, Ultron, Leo, and Maganak. Though that would only let us cover the latter part of the story after everyone gets their new mobile suits, we could also include the Ares, Tallgeese Wing, Death Scythe, and Shenlong if you're feeling like giving us a decent Wing story. I know this would mean adding 9 more mobile suits to an already stacked roster, but I think it would have been nice to include at least Sandrock and Ultron, who are perfectly built for a Warriors-style game. I mean, they could have even provided this to us as a DLC package along with the Wing story, and I absolutely would have bought this for another $20 to $30. We're also still missing the Gundam Spiegel for Schwartz, even though he's a playable character. As well, for some reason, they gave Angelo his purple Gira Zulu instead of the Rosen Zulu that he pilots in the anime. I played this game before actually watching Unicorn, and I remember seeing this and going, wait a minute, that looks completely different from what he pilots in Reborn. It also feels weird to see only one suit under both Gundam F91 and X. At least with Stardust Memory, Victory, G Gundam, and Turn A, we get either an antagonist or grunt suit to go with it. I know these aren't the focus of the story, but at least include someone to pair with the protagonist of these series. I just feel so bad for them. All alone on the character select screen. It's so sad. Pro. With each entry that's been made in this series, there's been a plethora of little tweaks and changes that have made a pretty big difference. This next part will make up a fairly big chunk of this pro, but I need to talk about the combat changes in Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn. The biggest change from Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 is that I am glad to report, and you've probably seen it throughout the gameplay so far, but we are back to the open maps for battlefields. On top of that, all the stages are brand spanking new. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, although it kept the open map battles, it also reused a lot of stages from the first game. Though it wasn't enough to really bother me because they gave them all a new coat of paint, the real issue was with Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3, where they made the battlefields just a handful of bases connected by these small corridors. There are still parts of that in different maps, but it's a much better mix of things. Another thing that Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 took away from us were space battles, which make a triumphant return with Reborn. On top of that, there's not much change to the combat controls, but what has been added really does change the way that you play. First of all, some movesets have been updated yet again, like the C2 for Gundam. But what has changed for all the suits is the ability to do a charged attack. Not a charge attack, but a charged attack. If you hold down triangle, your suit will start to glow. Once it does that, you can let it go to do a giant shot attack that will cause any killed units to blow up and damage nearby enemies. If you're strong enough, you can wipe out an entire wave of enemies using this move. When you're fighting against mobile armors, this is also very useful because you'll be able to cause a decent amount of damage to them by blowing up troops around them. What I like to do is start a normal string of attacks and press triangle to finish the combo, but I hold down triangle until the attack animation is done. Then I release my charge shot on the group of damaged enemies. It's so satisfying to do this, and you might need to do this on harder difficulties as you might not be able to take out enemies as quickly as you may think. Rage attacks also make a return from Dynasty Warriors 5 and 8, but this time called burst attacks. This is also how partner attacks are executed. When you enter burst mode, this is also how suits like Unicorn and Banshee transform into destroy mode. When you use your Musou to finish the burst state, your partner will come out and do their attack. Musous have also been updated where you have up to 3 bars, which is based on the level of the plan that you have equipped. Musous also only cost 1 bar now, rather than being extended if you have more than 1 bar filled. That being said, once your pilot reaches a certain level, if you have 2 or more bars filled, you can hold down the circle button to do a different Musou attack that might be better depending on the situation. Aerial Musous also only cost 1 bar. In the previous games, I would hold off and only use it against the final enemy or if I was in a pinch. Base typing also matters more now because certain bases will spawn guerrilla units that will attack opposing bases and generals. If you want to kill more units in a stage, you can leave these bases occupied by your enemies so you can take out more troops, or if you want to complete the stage quickly, you can take them out first. On top of that, licenses are no longer a thing. Instead, all you need to do is complete a specific stage, or complete a certain amount of stages as that mobile suit to unlock it for everyone. For 6-hit combo suits as well as mobile armors, you need to play through 10 stages. As 4-hit combo suits, you need to play through 5 stages. And as grunt suits, you need to play 3 stages. Pro tip, you can grab yourself a second controller and have a player 2 using another suit that you want to unlock for everyone else, and can knock 2 birds with 1 stone. The only thing that will hinder you from being able to pilot all suits is whether or not your pilot is a new type. But luckily, all you need to do is kill around 5,000 total enemies to make that pilot a new type. This also gives you a card as part of the card collection on top of that. All in all, there is just so many things to do, and every step of the way you are being rewarded one way or another. Alright folks, it's time to take away all of the praise that I've been saying about this game and flush it straight down the toilet. Though there is a lot of changes that I really liked, there is a handful of issues that really bugged the crap out of me, like the story mode. Every game previously has also included the story of Gundam Double Zeta. Though I haven't actually watched the anime, the stages we got in the last 3 games are still great. We do still have the mobile suits, and we can now play as the Queen Mantha, so why the hell can't we play through this story? Also, I mentioned earlier that this game was only ever released in the West on the PS3, even though the first 3 entries had ports on 360. For some reason, Bandai Namco decided not to do that here. As well, they decided not to have an English dub for this game, even though the last 3 games had an English dub. I found a lot of Japanese publishers were dabbling more in removing dubs from their series around this time to cut costs. Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn also came out at a time when Sony of America didn't want physical versions of games to be available if they didn't also include an English dub. So if you live in North America, good luck getting your hands on a physical copy. Not only will you not be able to purchase the DLC off of the North American store and have it work with your physical copy, but you have to choose whether or not you want to import it from Europe and pay over $100 thanks to a limited release, or pay a more appropriate amount for a Japanese copy at the cost of not being able to understand the text. If you're choosing to import from Japan though, you do have more options than the West because they also received a port on Vita. And just like the other Japanese versions, it has music from the anime. This game would have been incredible on the go. I kept saying that it sucked that there wasn't a portable version of a previous Dynasty Warriors Gundam, especially the 3rd entry, and here we are without a Vita port in English. But beware, if you find yourself searching on the Vita store, the DLC for some reason will appear there available for purchase. I tried to do some research on why, but I couldn't find any confirmation. My theory is that either they had originally planned to release an English port on Vita and the DLC had already been planned and they forgot to remove the cross-platform purchase when they released it, or they never planned a Vita port, but since the DLC released as a cross-purchase in Japan, when they released it in the West, they accidentally kept the cross-purchase option from the Japanese listing. Lastly, I could have forgiven the lack of physical in North America and the lack of Vita port in the West if we got this one thing that I think everybody would have wanted. When Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn first released, I heard so many people talking about the fact that we totally should have got a port on the PS4. Even if it was just released at a higher resolution, I would have loved to see this. Especially since Sony of America was a-okay with a physical release on their latest platform, even without an English dub. The thing is, in the West, it made perfect sense for us. Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn released in North America on July 1st, 2014, and the PS4 released on November 15th of 2013. So it absolutely feels like a missed opportunity. But though it feels weird for us that the PS4 released before Reborn, in Japan the game released on December 19th, 2013, while the PS4 released on February 22nd, 2014. So for the Japanese market, they got the console a couple months later. But you would think that Bandai Namco and Koei Tecmo would have had dev kits around the same time as the development of Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn. So I say that there is no excuse that this game did not receive a PS4 port. I mean, Dynasty Warriors 8 Extreme Legends came out a month before Gundam Reborn in Japan, and it received a PS4 port. I can only imagine what this game would have looked like if it received the same treatment. At the time of writing this script, it is April Fool's, and all 4 Dynasty Warriors Gundam games were promoted as coming to Steam, and all I can say is this shit on Steam or a modern console would absolutely make bank. In the end, this retrospective of all 4 Dynasty Warriors Gundam games has been a whole lot of fun to go through. Going back and popping the final achievement for the first game, working on the second game, and realizing just how much I enjoyed it over the third, which I realized how much of a missed opportunity Bandai Namco and Koei Tecmo stumbled on with the lack of a portable release. Finally coming around to Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn and just enjoying my time overall. But even though I enjoyed my time with each game, it's time to get down to brass tacks. I'm not going to go over each Gundam game like I did during some previous Musou Mays, so if you want to see how the other games stack up in comparison to this entry, check out the Musou May 2022 playlist with all of the videos. Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn made a bunch of changes from the third entry that I absolutely love and kept me coming back, even though I'm at the point where I just need to grind so I can take on the true Dynasty Warriors Gundam stage. But overall, I just love it. I do wish that we got this on PS4 or even on PC. Without a doubt in my mind, Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn is not only one of the best in the Gundam series, but it's also one of the best in the Musou franchise. To me, it reaches similar heights to Dynasty Warriors 8 and Hyrule Warriors, and that is why I give Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn a 9.5 out of 10. Bringing back the open map battlefields after the not so fun Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 was so good. The combat is always flowing thanks to the charged shot attack, and the game has just the right level of challenge where an 8-star hard difficulty stage will kill you in 4 to 5 hits. The amount of playable mobile suits rivals that of Warriors Orochi 3 Ultimate with over 120 options, and unlike Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3, the DLC is still available for purchase. Eventually, I do plan on covering the Vita release in an episode of the Import Report and the DLC on Expanded, but for now, I'm going to continue enjoying what we got here. Even though the overall graphics are a little on the dull side compared to the second and third entry, I don't mind the way that this game looks. As well, even though there are other mobile suits I'd like to see included in this game, the roster is pretty stacked to begin with. Honestly, to me, the only thing that would make Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn better would be a port on PC and modern consoles. I just want to be able to play it at a higher resolution and a steadier frame rate without resorting to emulation and losing my progress on that sweet platinum trophy. If this ever gets ported to PC or modern consoles, you can say goodbye to me for a couple of months afterwards as I enjoy my new life as a hermit, because I will be absolutely lost in playing through this game once again. Anyways, everybody, thank you so much for watching my review of Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and subscribe for more. Comment with your thoughts below and let me know which of the Dynasty Warriors Gundam was your favorite and which Gundam series is your favorite. If you'd like to help support this channel and what I do here, you can join the guild just like these awesome people that you're seeing on screen right now. You can join them at the end of every single video for just $1 a month over on Patreon. Or if you'd like to help support the channel on a one-time donation, you can join the volunteer unit over on Ko-fi. There are other rewards and other tiers as well, so check out the links that you see on screen, and I will see you all down in the comments.